NecroVMX here for Mandatory Metal and my YouTube channel, and we're taking a look at the top 10 best albums released in 2008. And in this video, we're going to look at the top 5. At number 5 is Warrel Dane, Praises to the War Machine. The last time I heard from the band Nevermore, their latest full-length album, This Godless Endeavor, came in 5th on my list. This year, 2 members of the band would release 2 solo albums, and while both of them were good, only one would make the list. Warrel Dane's Praises to the War Machine proves to be exactly as good as This Godless Endeavor, coming in at number 5. Well, actually, no, it's better. This is a much tougher year competition-wise. The album manages to basically sound like it could be a Nevermore album. However, it's anything but a clone, as Warrel shows that he has an identity of his own. His passion for taking strange choices of cover songs and rocking ass with them show here also, with a cover of the Sisters of Mercy song Lucretia, My Reflection, that destroys the original. And speaking of originals, the originals on this album are nothing to be sneezed at, with great hooks, haunting melodies, and absolutely crushing heaviness. Calling it a thrash album, while technically accurate, is almost an insult, as doom and progressive influences creep in, much like Nevermore. And Warrel's haunting vocals give it the proper texture. If I have any complaint, it's that the lyrics here are almost too well written, the dark and morose subject matter making the album a downer, with songs like August and Brother. Not that that's really a bad thing, as some of the best albums ever written are downers. At number 4 is Metallica, Death Magnetic. Now, I'll fully admit that I had no particular issue with 2003's much-maligned Saint Anger album, and sometimes I look at all the vitriol about that album and I wonder how much of it is genuine and how much of it is just people being assholes. Sheeple reviews aside, you can rest assured that Death Magnetic does not sound like Saint Anger, not in writing nor in production. Although the production, this time handled by Rick Rubin, does have some issues with loudness, the sound does work well for the band at least, especially considering that, although they seem to have been missing a step somewhere between And Justice for All and Metallica, the band seems to have gone back in time and filled in that missing gap. Death Magnetic is more than just a missing link in Metallica's evolution newly discovered. It's also a damn good thrash album in its own right, laying to rest all the naysayers who say the band can't play fast, complex music anymore. Well, that doesn't mean that the tricks that they've picked up from Load up until Saint Anger aren't used here, it's just that they're not the focus of the album. The focus seems to be on anthematic progressive thrash, as songs like My Apocalypse might have fit in on And Justice for All, as much as Cyanide might find a home on Load. And with The Unforgiven 3, the band does something both expected and unexpected, doing a second sequel but making it so different from the previous. Now don't go thinking that the album is a retrospective, as plenty of new ground is broken, particularly lyrically. The theme of the last album seemed to be frustration, and the theme of this one seems to be bitter remembrance, though without regrets, as the band picks and chugs its way through songs as vicious in their thematic content as in their musical content. At number 3 is Kip Winger, From the Moon to the Sun. As a fan of Winger in general, it was impossible for me to pass up on another solo album from the frontman, and having heard his previous solo albums, I thought I knew what to expect, a slightly more mellow, slightly more progressive version of any Winger album. However, Kip really pulled it off here with a surprisingly rich and textured album that meshes in world themes, pop sensibilities, and a 1970s touch of writing and tone and production. The album's closest kin may be Peter Gabriel's Up, and it's hard to find better company to be in. The album could be best described as the best of both worlds. While it takes several listens to appreciate the complexity, subtlety, and richness of the record, it's immediately pleasing to the ears, with soaring verses, energetic choruses, and some of the clearest sound you'll hear in a modern album. Kip's pen may be exceptional on this, but that's not to diminish what he does with his voice, and not to mention the imagination behind such an undertaking. With songs like Nothing and Ghosts, there are the kind of frequent changes you'd expect, and songs such as What We Are and Where Will You Go give us the kind of thing you might expect from previous efforts, though definitely put through a copy machine made in 1974. The end result is the best sort of prog rock album, the kind that's listened to in the dark with your eyes closed, laying down, and of course, with headphones. At number 2 is Judas Priest, Nostradamus. If you told me a few years ago that Judas Priest would be back with Rob Halford as their singer, and that they'd release a double concept album, I'd say, well shit, where's the time machine? Nostradamus may be this band's masterpiece, and considering that it's their 16th album out of a very illustrious career from a group of guys that are legends, that's saying something. Occasionally, the sort of human detritus that tend to fashion themselves as musical journalists like to play games that would be funny if they weren't so idiotic, such as claiming that a concept album is guaranteed career suicide. Now, it only takes half a brain to know that these sorts of albums are usually greatly received by fans and are done at the height of a band's career, and can even sometimes revive a career that has been failing. Now, sure, some bands such as Pink Floyd seem to go downhill after releasing the double concept, but that's only because it's hard to live up to. Doing a concept album late in a band's career is probably the better time, as something thrilling is needed, and drawing up on a historical and controversial and mysterious figure such as Nostradamus has the ability to draw people in who may know more about the subject than the band. Now, to say I was looking forward to this is an understatement, and Judas Priest not only didn't disappoint, they exceeded my already high expectations. You know the band Iced Earth? Well, they've been trying to be Judas Priest for years, and now with the once great Iced Earth descending into mediocrity, and Judas Priest doing it better than they ever could, you have to wonder, why does Iced Earth even still exist? Well, before I get to number one, let's do that recap thing. Number 10 was Swallow the Sun, Plague of Butterflies. Number 9 was Opeth, Watershed. Number 8 was Bloodbath, The Whack-In' Carnage. Number 7 was Rush, Snakes and Arrows Live. Number 6 was Asia, Phoenix. Number 5 was Warrell Dane, Praises to the War Machine. Number 4 was Metallica, Death Magnetic. Number 3 was Kip Winger, From the Moon to the Sun. And number 2 was Judas Priest, Nostradamus. And the number 1 album of 2008, the best album released this year, is Ayreon, 01011001. With the almost viral marketing style of slow release of details on this album, the hype was almost unbearable. Could it live up to the hype as well as the previous album, The Human Equation, which took the number 1 spot on my list in 2004? Well, with the slow leak of details such as cast members, small clips of singing, who would guest star for guitar solos, and of course the title, we all eventually knew what the album would sound like. After all Ayreon albums have the mixture of operatic progressive metal, power metal, and world and folk. The question comes into mind is, how good is the concept? With a promise to return to science fiction, and one of the biggest and most varied casts yet in an Ayreon epic, how good did it turn out? Well, seeing as how we're here at number 1, that question answers itself. 01011001's title gave no clues to the sheer scope and ambition of this project. To put it lightly, it's mind-blowing to think that every previous effort's story not only takes place in the same lush world, but would all be tied together with this masterpiece. With such an ambitious plot, it would have been easy to spread too thin and resort to hokey references. But the fact that the saga gives the entire Ayreon catalog a clear timeline is amazing. That's not to say that the story is found solely in the album isn't compelling, as the story of super advanced aliens leaving the world to seek out the lost art of emotion and discovering Earth is nothing short of a wild ride, punctuated by perfectly written pieces. You can feel the desperation beneath the waves, feel the excitement of Ride the Comet, understand the difficult choices of the fifth extinction, and feel the horror and the grim reality of the end of the world, dramatized in the sixth extinction. Though, through music and words, Arjen Lucassen creates characters that, though they have no names, have identities beyond mere archetypes, and the conflicts are all very real-feeling. And of course there's the cast, with the hauntingly melancholic Jonas Rensk stealing the show, though other stars such as Bob Catley, Hansi Kirsch, and Aniek van Ginsberger leaving their marks, not to mention Jorn Lund, who perhaps has the biggest burden and handles it remarkably. Then, of course, there's the smaller roles from such vocalists as Fido Xavier, Ty Tabor, and Arjen Lucassen himself, who pop in briefly, well, almost too briefly. Even with such questionable choices as Simone Simmons and Daniel Gildenlau, the album is still strong, with even Gildenlau having to bow to the superiority of Ayreon's music over the dull pain of Salvation. The only problem now, how is he going to top it? Well, that's the top 10 albums of 2008 for Mandatory Metal, and my YouTube channel. That's NecroVMX, and since I got a little bit of time, I'm going to give you a little extra bonus here. A little bonus. I'm going to take a look at the albums that almost made it. So, I'd like to give the following albums, in no particular order, honorable mention. Dream Evil, Gold Medal in Metal. Sonic Syndicate, Love and Other Disasters. Life Lover, Conquers. Tesla, Forevermore. Diapocalyptian Writer, Lit. Muse, Harp. Scar Symmetry, Holographic Universe. Candlebox, Into the Sun. Avantasia, The Scarecrow. Agalok, The White. Presto Ballet, The Lost Art of Time Travel. Motley Crue, Saints of Los Angeles. The Rotted, Get Dead or Die Trying. Trivium, Shogun. Guns N' Roses, Chinese Democracy. Ed Guy, Tinnitus Sanctus. The Killers, Day and Age. And Grand Magus, Iron Will. Well, see you guys with another list next year.